Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Yu Wing. You can call me Yu Win or Win. I'm really happy to be here with you today. Thank you for showing up and checking this out. I just came from a session with my therapist and I am emotionally fatigued. I also had a call with my mentor earlier today. And so I wonder if we could take 3 double breaths. And if your lung capacity is able to do a triple breath, please do that. So go ahead and exhale whatever's left in your lungs. And then go ahead and inhale. Inhale again. Inhale one more time if you can. And then exhale. Second time, go ahead and inhale. Inhale again. If you can, inhale a third time and then exhale. Third round, go ahead and inhale. Inhale again. Inhale again if you can, and then exhale. That helps me get out of whatever thoughts I'm spinning in my head. It does feel a little bit different than a double inhale if you were able to try it, but either one works for you. Go ahead and add that to your toolbox. Thank you for doing that with me. I know we've done it before. If you have been watching my videos, but perhaps that was your first time. So I hope that was helpful. And if not, you can leave it. I am a proponent of mental well being, behavioral health, mental health. I've worked in the field since 2015 in a non clinical capacity as someone doing prevention and early intervention work, which is essentially working with people who may identify as feeling well or maybe starting to experience some difficulties. And so they may or may not have a diagnosis, but it's a lot of education. It's a lot of psychoeducation about different topics that might be helpful for them. And so it is an area where not that I feel at home, but I believe in its value and its worth. And even though I struggle with suicide assessments, homicidal assessments, even though I can feel compassion fatigue and the heaviness of sharing in people's struggles, I know how important it is to be able to support in whatever capacity I have available, even if it's not for work. I will say that it is always so much more difficult with loved ones, particularly those you have history with, maybe blood, family, family of origin, um, a long term partner, right? It's more difficult because we have these emotional attachments or these wounds or these, things that haven't been healed But one of the really interesting things that came up for me today in session was my therapist said when you live with someone or you are emotionally connected to someone, their mental health impacts your quality of life. So let me say that again. Someone you live with or someone that you are emotionally close to, their mental health impacts your quality of life. And even though I'd never thought of it in that exact way, I've experienced that for a very long time. And I'm hoping that that realization will help something. I don't know exactly what, but that it will help shift something. It'll help, that awareness will help. I don't know what yet, still processing it, but that was one of the takeaways I had from today's session. The other one, and something that I also wanted to talk about today, is healing. I think there's so many different connotations and understandings of what that means. And I think, much like happiness or success, I think each person will define it, or it's important to be able to define it for yourself. Sometimes healing feels like fixing some part of you that's broken. Sometimes people talk about it as there's an ailment and you can go to a doctor or someone who practices some form of medicine and they prescribe you some kind of treatment. Maybe that's a way of understanding healing. I've heard healing as bringing light or love to a part of us that isn't feeling well. So maybe I have, uh, oh, not maybe, I have tight shoulders. I do this a lot. And when I'm at a computer, I do it more. When I'm stressed, when it's a time crunch. And so healing could be offering my shoulders extra love, whatever shape that might take. It might be touch, or it might just be loving thoughts. It could be getting a massage from somebody else. It could be trying to let go of maybe some of the tension if it's like mental concerns or anxiety that I'm experiencing, perhaps shining some light or some love on that to help it heal. I also heard that healing can be thought of as learning to process pain. So I will admit that I have been someone who has run from pain and probably will continue to do so based on what's going on and what my capacity is. Um, Maybe an example I can share is I was 24. I was in a relationship, a romantic relationship that was unfulfilling, but I didn't want to let go. I had a connection with another person that felt spiritual. It felt like we had a soul connection. That was very confusing. I was trying to focus on feeling good and not dealing with anything, including like my relationship with my parents. Um, started being less mindful and aware in my friendships. And so I just kept ignoring and distracting myself. And then one day I woke up from a dream, and I remember this dream vividly, even though it's been a very long time. I had a dream where I was walking down a sidewalk in some shopping center, strip mall, and I could hear the sound of someone crying. I was looking around, I couldn't see anyone around me. And then the voice sounded familiar, sounded like my voice or a voice of a younger me. And if, as I was like looking around and trying to find the source of the crying, it seemed like it was coming from beneath me, like in the sidewalk. And I was like, I remember waking up being like, I can try to run away from my pain or my confusion or my issues, but they follow me like everywhere. And so for me, that kind of is a way of conceptualizing what it means to process pain because I was doing the opposite, right? I was running. And even, when I had gone through a breakup in 2015, using television and binge watching as a way to not feel the pain and sadness and grief of losing this relationship and these hopes that I had. And so, healing as processing pain is I'm going to sit with this pain. I'm going to sit with it, even if it's uncomfortable. And I'm going to like allow it to metabolize. Maybe when it doesn't completely overwhelm my system, I can be curious and ask questions about where it's coming from or excuse me, just to like investigate like what's going on, where what might be at the heart of it. And so healing came up because I was sharing that I learned in my relationship dynamic with my mom, she was not likely to change on her own accord. As an older Vietnamese woman who grew up in the Vietnam War and left her country to find opportunities elsewhere because she didn't want to live under a communist regime government. Um, a lot of unprocessed fear, pain, suffering. But what I did notice was when I asked myself, how am I contributing? What can I shift? What can I change? And I showed up differently. She adapted. She adapted to me. So, where she can be very critical and unfiltered in her comments, she can snap when I was sweet, when my tone was gentle, when I was bringing honey instead of vinegar. I don't know. I can't remember the saying. I'm not very good at those. Um, but she responded differently. And so when I shared that with my therapist, she said, "Can you see that when you healed, you helped your mom heal in her own way?" And I paused. I thought about it. I was like, okay, I can hear that now. I can receive that. And it made me think of, I don't know if it's a specific group or if it's just sort of across indigenous cultures from North America. But this idea of 7 generations, like when you make a decision, you consider how it might impact 7 generations after you. And I was listening to something, can't remember when, but they were offering this idea that when I heal, I can heal generations after me, right? So my descendants can also heal my ancestors going 7 generations back. And it seemed a lot, but all the things that I went through when I heard that, I was starting to understand that I could potentially be healing my lineage, maybe particularly with the women in my maternal and paternal lineages, maybe for the men as well. But there is an impact that we have when we shine our light, when we heal, when we are our true selves, when we act from love, when we are authentic, we inspire others, right? And I really do believe that energy doesn't lie, right? So you can just imagine the people that you've come into contact today, whether it was like through text, a phone call, or in person, you could sense, right, if they were okay overall, if they were feeling good, if they were unhappy, if they were miserable, if they were sick, right? And so I think it speaks to the interdependence and how we are connected beyond what we can see physically. And, even germs, we share those too. So we can impact each other in that way. Even the idea of mirror neurons, right? Like if I yawn, you might feel like yawning soon, right? Um, but that if I am healthy, if I feel love, if I feel joyful, I may impact you unless you have a way of keeping, other people's energies away from you. Um, yeah, that's what I'm thinking about today. Did I tell you what I'm reading? Okay, before I go, I just want to talk about how excited I am about the books that I'm reading. So, reading the second book in the trilogy of The Art of Hearing Heartbeats. The second book is called A Well Tempered Heart. And so I'm reading that during the day. And then in the evenings before going to sleep, I'm reading The Five Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom. And it talks about, okay, when we only look at money as the way of measuring our success, our happiness, our meaning in our lives, um, it doesn't pan out well because there are other things that we require in order to feel like we've lived a well lived life, right? So, connected to my thoughts around society's blueprint versus my blueprint, my soul's blueprint. Anyhow, so he talks about the 5 types of wealth being time wealth. So, what you do with your time, um, mental wealth. So, the ability to grow and to believe that you're capable of learning and expanding, but also making time for practices and space to ask some of those unanswerable questions or to think about something bigger than us. There's social wealth. So, the connections, the love, the support, being able to show up authentically with the people in your lives and to have connections that may help you expand in other ways. There's physical wealth, right? So your vitality, your mobility, your nutrition, your movement. And then the last one being financial wealth, right? So knowing what's enough, what you need to be enough financially, being able to increase your income as you increase your skills. And so I haven't gotten too far into this book, but it's really aiding me as I'm exploring my soul's blueprint and seeing there is an assessment in there, the wealth score, and it's out of 100 points. But I know that I score higher in 4 out of the 5 areas. And so I'm curious to see what reading and like continuing on will do and what will unfold and what information I'll come across and how I might see my life differently, right? Where I was not subscribed to society's blueprint, I was still using it as my framework. And so, as I'm trying to shift and replace it with something that's more aligned with who I am, this book is helping me feel like, okay, yeah, it's not just about what you can buy and have with money. So, I am really excited to be reading both of these books. And I haven't really read 2 books simultaneously ever. So, yeah, wish me luck. I will leave you here. I do hope that you know, or that you will soon come to believe that who you truly are is worthy and deserving of love. I look forward to connecting with you next time. And until then, please take good care. Okay, bye bye.